Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, youth action and wellbeing grants. What is their purpose? So at Foundation for Young Australians, we're really looking at backing young people to make the change they want to see in the world. So the grants are really about getting money to under-resourced youth-led groups um, that, ideally grassroots, ideally with lived experience of injustice, providing the resources they need to make a positive difference. So really, it's the 3/4 of the money is for what we're calling youth action, 1/4 is for well-being. So it's really those 2 points down the bottom of the slide. They're tangible change that's hard to undo, systemic change, and I'll talk a bit more about, what that means. It's obviously can be interpreted in lots of different ways. And well-being and resilience to keep up the fight. So really, we're trying to make the point that campaigning, making change in the world is obviously something that is hard work. And so well-being is something that's important for people to incorporate into that. We're really focused on building power of youth-led groups, and from our point of view in the youth action team at FYA, power is built collectively. You need to organize and mobilize a support base. And obviously this requires resources to do in a good way. So these grants really are about providing those resources for power building. In terms of what the grants offer, so there's, as I said, 3/4 of it is in youth action grants. They're $5,000 to $15,000. And we're really focused on actions that will create systemic change or contribute to systemic change. And the wellbeing grants, $2,000 to $5,000, really to support the wellbeing of youth-led groups to keep up the fight sustainably. And you can apply for both. And we're very open to groups applying for both. That really, I guess, emphasizes the message we're trying to get across, which is that change requires, some resources to be put into the well-being of the people doing the campaigning, doing the fighting for justice. In addition to that, we have what we call wraparound support. So if you're successful in getting a grant, it's a 10-month program, starts around November, December this year, goes till October next year. There's mentoring and coaching from FYA's youth action team members. So you'll be assigned a mentor, you'll meet with them, on a regular basis. And there'll also be a training program, again, depending on the grantees, what their needs are, what the sorts of things they're interested in doing are. And there's a whole range of areas where we have expertise in the team at Foundation for Young Australians, be that media, digital, social media, strategy development, community organizing, well-being, which we've mentioned. There's a whole range of things which will be made available. And I guess you can pick and choose from what is there and show up to the training sessions as as the most useful ones for where you're at, particularly in your group. So I'll talk a bit about the selection criteria. I think this is probably the key thing to talk about. We're looking at groups. So this is not a single person applying for a grant. This is a group of people. So we're looking at collectives. That's how we believe power is built. So that's what we want to support. Led by young people. So we're defining that for these grants as under 30 with lived experience of the issue they're campaigning on. So we're really looking to, and again, doesn't mean everyone in the group needs to be in that boat, but really we're looking at leadership, at decision-making, trying to have those sorts of people in those positions. The goals of the organization focused on creating systemic change. So that's really about, so just be clear that what you apply for in the grant doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to systemic change, but has to be part of the overall goal of the organization to create some sort of system change. And again, I'll talk a bit more about the definition of that a bit later, but really is about a tangible change in, resources or how an institution treats a particular group of people or something like that. Campaigns aligned with FYA's progressive values. So FYA considers itself a progressive organization. We have a set of values that we adhere to, and we're looking for campaigns that, we would consider on the progressive side of the political spectrum, because that's well and surely where we sit as well. And yeah, looking at actions that will make a difference. Growing or demonstrating power, they're the key things around youth action, increasing well-being and resilience. So that's really the key. We're really focused on, getting money to young people who are showing leadership and who are working to create systemic change. As I mentioned earlier, so the panel is, we have a youth grants panel, which is 8 people, age 16 to 29. So they've been appointed by FYA, they're volunteering their time, and they're the ones who will actually make the decision on where the money will go. FYA will provide advice around eligibility, provide assistance to create templates for assessment, that sort of thing, but the decision will be up to them. And that's, where we're at. We think it really adds value to have young people actually deciding on where they think the money is best spent. And we will do some work with them, on campaigning, on structural change. What do all those things mean, so that there's a clear interpretation there. Other factors that fall slightly outside the kind of strict selection criteria. So, we prioritize campaigns that are grassroots, so based in community, not necessarily linked to very big, well-funded groups already. We want to have a diversity of groups being funded in terms of issues, locations, lived experience, etc. And prioritizing groups that don't have ready access to funding already from other sources. So there might be a bigger group, or they might be involved in certain issues that already have a lot of funding available. And so, we're looking at putting money where it's most needed. And I've already mentioned this is already part of the selection criteria, but lived experience, led by those with lived experience of the issues they're campaigning about. So a bit on systemic and structural change, and I'm interested to hear what other people, I guess, how you might interpret this, because obviously it's not clear cut, but from our point of view, it's a tangible goal, something that you can actually measure, and permanent, or at least semi-permanent. So if you win the change that if you get to your goal, you get a change that is actually has to be consciously changed back again. Something a change that can stick to a certain extent in how a system operates. So as I mentioned before, resources or money, how that's distributed, a change in the rules governing how a government or a private institution treats particular groups of people. It's often around policy. It's not, for example, a shift in public awareness or attitude. So usually to get a structural change, you need to build and wield power. Like that's the key there. The other thing we're open to is also, I guess, systemic or structural change, but also building new systems, I guess, that meet people's needs outside of existing systemic or, and power structures as well. We are interested in that. That's not kind of the main aim of these grants, but we're open to exploring that if people are looking at mutual aid or those sorts of things as well. We consider that it's not systemic change, but it's more creating new systems so that people don't need to engage with unjust systems. So yeah, as I said, we're open to that sort of stuff as well. This is the screenshot I thought I should mention. So this is the expression of interest. So at the moment, expressions of interest are open till the 2nd of October. I'll talk a bit more about this in a sec, but it's a two-step process because we really wanted to make the first step accessible. These are the two key questions in the expression of interest form. So the first one is, tell us about your group, organization, or community, and its vision. And so that's the one where you've got the opportunity to address the criteria. Who are you? What are you trying to achieve? That's a really important question. And the second question is, what action or activity will the group spend the grant money on? So again, we don't need detail at this stage in the expression of interest stage. We don't need like a budget, or those sorts of things, but really just like, what's your idea? Where will the money go? Yeah, and so I think they're the two critical questions. What we're looking for is just to be able to say, is this eligible? Is this a good idea? And then the grant panel will have a look at it and see what they think. Any questions about that in particular? Oh, great. So the process from here, as I said, we've got the expression of interest. That's open till the 2nd of October. Then the youth grants panel will decide on a shortlist, and we will endeavour to provide feedback to everyone that's applied. That's really our aim. So if you don't make the shortlist, we'll give you feedback at that stage. The shortlist will be announced, in about 4 weeks' time, and then members of the youth action team here at FYA will actually work with the shortlisted applicants to put together a more detailed application. So we'll have templates for budgets, we'll have templates for project plans and all those sorts of things. And we'll work with you to get round 2 applications done. And then in November is when we'll make the decision on the actual grant round. And that will be released, ideally mid-November, depending on how quickly we can process all the paperwork. So that's where we're at. As I said, we've tried to make it as easy as possible to get in to the expression of interest stage, because we really want groups that are not well resourced to feel confident in putting in their ideas, and more detail will come once the shortlist is announced, and so that will come later, and that's where you've got a bit more of it. You've got a bit more of a chance, I think, at that phase. I think that's the end. Yes, I will stop sharing and see if there's any questions or clarifications or views on what it all means, systemic change and those sorts of things.
I'll go ahead first if no one's gonna. Just going back to the expression of interest. Like, are you gonna get a form to fill out? Is there a link?
Yeah. So there is a link. Let me just see if I can find it.
And it mentioned there's like templates and sort of support will be provided as well.
Yeah. So look, I'll send you I'll message the link to everyone.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So that's the website that I just sent, and so from that site you can go to the expression of interest form. the expression of interest is there. You don't need any templates at this stage. The templates will be sent through if you make it to the shortlist.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't know how many applications we'll get between expressions of interest, sorry, between now and the 2nd of October. And based on the number, we'll look at, how many we can actually get onto the shortlist. And then in the shortlist, you'll get given, you'll get assistance in putting the application together into more detail.
Thank you.
So
Do you have,
basically,
yeah, sorry, Ness, you had a question?
yeah, just I think a clarification. So basically that's all, that 2-minute video, that's all that we need to put in if we're doing a video, or just a write-up of the 250 letter thing for the expression of interest.
That's right. Well, it can be 2-minute videos. So
Mm.
one for each of those two main questions. There's obviously a bunch of other questions in the expression of interest form just to get information about the group and how many young people are involved and where you're mainly based, if you're geographically based, and those sorts of things. But yes, it's be 2-minute videos to answer those two questions. And yeah, that's what I said. We're just looking at, when we get the expression of interest, the key thing we're looking at is this application eligible? Does it fit the criteria? So that's, I guess, the question you're really wanting to answer in your response to the expression of interest form. And then any other information, about how you want to spend the money and who you are, that will then help the youth grants panel make the decision on the actual shortlisting. So it's not a lot of information that's needed at this stage. And yeah, we've done that purposefully to avoid barriers to entry.
Yeah. Cool. And because we are a network, we're composed of so many organizations. Well, we're not funded at all and all that. But we do have some members who have their own funding. So is that okay to apply as a network, or do we have to pick those whatever organizations inside?
No, it's fine to apply as the network that you are. You can tell us about who your members are, and I think that's good information. But yeah, again, we're quite flexible. You don't have to be an incorporated association. You don't have to be a charity. You don't even need to be necessarily a formal organization. Where that's why sometimes you'll see in the guidelines. So again, linking from that website I sent in the chat, there's also a link to the guidelines, which really is the information I went through today. And they say, community, they say organization, group, or community. And again, we're open to applications from, groups that aren't necessarily formalized, much looser groups that are looking to make change, but may not be at this stage. And something I forgot to mention, actually, the money itself. So we're open to, in the slide on systemic change, one of the things I mentioned is like creating awareness, or a change in attitude is not systemic change. Running just a training session for something in and of itself is not systemic change. But if you're running a training, if you want to apply for a grant to run training, for example, but it's within the context of a campaign that has a goal, a tangible goal, then that's okay. It doesn't need to be the application doesn't need to be for something that's very kind of obviously systemic change, as long as it's in that context.
Yeah. Cool. That's good clarification, especially if we're gonna think about the Scrap the Cap campaign, or whatever other campaigns inside the network.
Yeah, that's right. I want to make that clear. It doesn't, the systemic change aspect is not so much the specific grant money. It's more just what are you trying to achieve as an organization?
Yeah.
Yeah. In a much broader sense.
Mhm.